Hari Go Bhakta-vrinda. Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Shira Prabhupada 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 Shira Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Sri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki. Jananda, can you turn this down a little bit? It's feeding back. Can you turn it down a bit? Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprasad ki. Number one, just take the slider down a bit. That's fine. A bit up a bit, up a bit, up. Okay. So today is the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, and also it's the appearance of Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprasad 27 years ago. Is anybody here 27 or less? How old are you? How old? 13? Eternally? We're talking about like in your mundane incarnation. So the deity has been here since then, 1996. And it was a day not unlike today where we had just come back from Sankirtan. I'll kind of rewind a little bit. So Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprasad, I'm not sure we're called before, if they were just called Gornitai, we can maybe find that's what the thing we said, yeah. So when they were in San Francisco, they were called Gornitai. And the devotees there were having difficulty. This was in Berkeley, San Francisco. They were having difficulty to maintain the worship there. In fact, it was Jagannath. What's his name? Jagannath. Jai Jagannath. He was actually, he's been here a few times recently. He was one of the pujaris at that time. And there was also a fire on the altar, which makes sense. I didn't know this until just a few years back. But when the deities came, they had a kind of they had some kind of like, we thought it was just dirt on them that they hadn't been cleaned properly for some time, but it was actually smoke damage on their bodies. And also some of the outfits, I was wondering why they looked so grubby when they came. Some very nice outfits, actually. But then later on, that became obvious that was the reason why, because there was a fire on the altar. Thankfully, the deities weren't damaged to the extent where, they couldn't be painted again. So anyway, the devotees had just come back from Sankirtan. In those days, we had a big Mercedes minibus. It was like a 20-odd seater. And I think we had about 14 devotees going out, and we all piled back. So we knew that sometime some Gornitai deities were coming, because the GBC meetings that year were a bit early. And it was discussed that there was a set of Gornitai in San Francisco who were looking for a new home. And the Scottish Yatra had been considered as one of the contenders for their new home. And normally when these things happen, it takes a bit of time to and fro before things actually happen. In ISKCON time, it's, we can talk about something and it takes months or years to manifest. But it was actually a few weeks. And then, so we just came to Sankirtan, and I was told, Prana, turn the minibus round, we're going to the airport. We got a special guest arriving today. And it was Shishiko Nitai Marpashashi. Interesting connection that for the first 12 years of Karuna Bhavan, or say at least the first 10 anyway, that Karuna Bhavan is named after Sri Karuna Sindhu, the Shalagram Shila, who is known as Lord Ram, is a Rana Ram or King Ram Shila. So for many years, he was the focus of our worship and the focus of our service. When we were going in Sankirtan, we'd be focusing on him, and it was a very happy serving Karuna Sindhu and the Maha. We used to fight over that. There was some, Paul and Carol might remember some of these ecstatic fights we used to have, Maha fights. What's that? Oh, did you? Wow. Yeah, sometimes it was a bit of a bloodbath. And it didn't stop the devotees, though. Yeah, I remember Shama Sundar. He was, he's still quite strong and fit, but then he was just fresh out of the Marines. So he used to be given the Maha Prasadam. And at that time, there was no greenhouses, it was just fields. And he used to run up there, and we couldn't catch him. He would just allow us to catch him in due course. But yeah, there was lots of cuts and bruises. And after a year of the ashram, I remember Shiv Ram Swami visiting, and they said that, the ashram should be made of stainless steel and rubber to make it devotee-proof, because within a year we had holes in the wall and all sorts of damages. The car door was damaged, the loft hatch was ripped off, and this was all due to the ecstatic Maha chases that the devotees used to engage in. So we were very enthusiastic in achieving Karuna Sindhu's Maha, and the devotees used to pray to that deity every day. So as we see in this picture here, Lord Chaitanya is showing that he is Sadbhuj. He's got this 6-armed form where he displays himself as the Chana avatar, or the incarnation of the devotee, showing us how to be a devotee. He's also showing that he's Krishna, and the 2 arms which are holding the bow and arrow, showing that he's Lord Ram. And in Chaitanya Leela also, he disclosed this form to Murari Gupta, who he actually revealed that he was Hanuman. When he asked Murari Gupta to give up worship of Lord Ram and take to Radha Krishna worship, he couldn't do it. Much as he tried, his heart was broken trying to give up the worship of Lord Ram. And Lord Chaitanya says, that is because you're Hanuman. And he wasn't just like, sometimes we joke like this, he's actually Hanuman. So this is the same, Lord Chaitanya is the same Lord Ram. So it's a very interesting connection. The deity who we served and worshipped for many years, and who was within the hearts of the devotees, very dear. Sometimes devotees say, oh, he's got no deities in Karuna Bhavan. We think, well, what do you think Shalagram is? He doesn't even need installed, and he was given to Srila Prabhupada's hand personally. He was the first Shalagram given in ISKCON. So anyway, it was just very interesting that on the very day of Lord Ram's appearance, he appeared again as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was interesting also because the bus which we had, we'd taken quite a few of the back seats out, and we used to load festival equipment in there so we could take 20 odd devotees plus festival equipment. And I was thinking, oh yeah, well, the deities have arrived in the box, we'll easily get that in the back, but it was so big, we couldn't get the box in. So the deities, they actually were sat up front in the minibus with their seatbelts on, of course. Not that they required to be protected, but that's our service to them. And it seems like when they arrived in Scotland, they wanted to give their darshan from the airport to Lismahago. So actually, when we arrived in the airport, we got there in the evening. So we come back, usually we were back for about 6 o'clock. And roughly about this time, you know, the sun's going down about 7:30, 7:45, something like that. And it's interesting because Prajumna just returned today, and we were discussing about fasting. And one devotee said, well, it says on the calendar fasting till noon. And he says, well, according to him, it was always fasting till sunset. And that's what we always knew as well, fasting till sunset, because apparently that's when Lord Ram appeared. And this is connecting with, we had to work with the immigration or the imports, fill in some paperwork, and there was some issues there. We were really trying to work hard to clear those issues because we didn't want to leave the deities overnight in some warehouse and then wonder, you know, what would happen between now and then. So, but finally we got the paperwork, and it just so happens we, I think we borrowed some tools from the guy. We had to open up the box, and just as the paperwork was given to go to the warehouse to get them, then it was just about sunset. So that was the Lord putting us in a little anxiety. Often this is what happens when the Lord appears in our life. We can get put through a bit of anxiety. That's some purification. Sometimes we experience that before we go to the Holy Dam, or when we get there, we get some purification. And if we just continue patiently with our Krishna consciousness, then we'll see the Lord's hand there. So the deities arrived in Ram Navami, and within a short time, a few days, then we had built an altar in the temple room, because for a good few years we had actually just a big Panchatattva picture on the altar, which the devotees also felt a lot of reciprocation from. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami explains how the deity is manifest in different forms. And it's really actually not so much whether the deity is made of wood, stone, metal, paint. It's a matter of what's the devotion within the heart, you know, what's our offering. If we have the will to serve, then we'll see the Lord in many different ways. A funny story, actually. When I arrived in Chaitanya College, back in the day when we were visiting Chaitanya College, we were quite in a different state of mind. I shall testify to that. And there's probably a few kind of remnants of what was going on in our previous life when we started visiting. And I was staying in the guest room, and there was a nice picture of Gopal on a table there. And every day it seemed to be getting lighter and lighter. And I was thinking, oh, maybe this is the Lord revealing himself. And I think it was just the sun was bleaching it. And I mentioned it to one devotee, and he just told me off to stop being a sahaja. So I accepted that. I thought, okay, this is a practical explanation. It's not something cosmic going on here. It's just something practical phenomena. So to begin with, the deities were installed. Well, of course, they were already installed. They were originally fashioned in New Vrindavan, and they were worshipped. They were installed by Swarup Damodar Maharaj, and they were worshipped in San Francisco for some time. And interesting, when Vaisheshika came to visit, then I'd learned before he came that he used to worship those deities, but I didn't tell them until he came. I thought, I'll see if he recognizes them. So he came into the temple and he paid his obeisance to Prabhupada and the deities, and then they get up. And I said to him, do you see anyone you recognize? And he goes, I used to serve those deities in San Francisco. So it was quite an ecstatic thing, because he's quite an ecstatic person as it is. He just exudes bliss. He's a very absorbed devotee. Yeah, and then sometime later, the deities were moved up here to Jagannath Ashram. And we had quite a simple altar to begin with, and then we got this one here. It was interesting, when we got this altar, then we were thinking we're doing something elaborate. And when Shiv Ramaraj heard about it, and he says, is it marble? I said, no, it's wood. And then he said, it's just a glorified box. And I thought, yeah, it is. In our mind, we were thinking something, but he's on a different level. You see the level of worship he offers. But anyway, Gornitai, Shikodnitai Mapishashi, they're very kindly accepting whatever we offer. They're in a, this temple is very dear to us because we spend so much time in here doing our sadhana and so many festivals, etc. But when you look at it from a material point of view, it's actually just a little 8 meter by 6 meter barn on the top of a hill with a wonky roof. And it's not really, materially, it's not got that much going for it. But that's not what it seems to be to the devotees. When before we built Gauranga Hall, and we had the planning devotees here, planned devotees, they are kind of devotees, they did some service. We had the members of the planning team here from South Lanarkshire. So our local councillor was quite favourable. We'd developed a nice friendly relationship with him over the years. And he wanted to make sure that we got what we needed in terms of planning permission, etc. So it was his idea to bring the planning people here and give them a tour and let them see what we're doing. And when they come into the temple, then their mood actually become very softened. Prior to that, they were a wee bit kind of dubious, and they come in and said, it's a very nice atmosphere in here. And I couldn't exactly say that's because you're standing in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Sri Sri Kodnitai Mahaprashashi. So I said, well, it's because there's meditation going on in here, so the vibrations of the room, remains there, etc. And then the lady and head of planning, she said, actually, I've been to India and I'm vegetarian. And she opened up, and then we walked out of here. And as we're walking down the hill, she says, and our counsellor says, so what do you think? She says, yeah, well, why not? And I said, what about planning permission for public worship? She says, well, everyone else has got to, they get to worship in their way. Why not you? So we got permission for Gauranga Hall. We got permission for phase 2, which we haven't built yet. We've got religious worship use as well. And this is the power of the deities, even just in their physical form there. When Murli might remember, you probably know the story better myself, but I remember being told, I think it was Bhagavat Shrai was telling us, maybe Jainatai, maybe even yourself, there's one Chinese man who goes to Soul Street occasionally, and he just sits there all day in front of the deities, doesn't chant, doesn't do anything, he just sits there and basically someone asked him, what you doing? He says, I just sit there and absorb all these good vibrations, and that keeps me going for about 6 months, and then I come back again. So there's someone who is getting the mercy of the Lord. So another aspect of Kodnitai Mahaprashashi appearing was that prior to them appearing, we had this campaign called the Gauranga campaign, which was a very auspicious campaign. And the Holy Name of Lord Chaitanya, this it wasn't some speculation either, because when Srila Prabhupada arrived in Boston Pier, then he composed this Markini Bhagavat Dharma, and he says the holy name of Gauranga will be spread to every town and village. He also says, the chanting of Hare Krishna, but he mentions Gauranga. And based on this verse of Lord Nityananda, Bhaja Goranga, Kaha Goranga, Laha Goranga Namare, Jejana Goranga, Bhajasya Mara Pranare, that whoever worships Goranga, chants his name, and takes him as the life and soul, becomes my life and soul, and he will, and Lord Nityananda says, I'll make all facilities for them to become a devotee. So the devotees of Karuna Bhavan had been pushing out the name of Lord Gauranga for a good few years, and quite intensely. Even those who are involved in advertising were they were trying to place their material estimations on it. They have a thing called saturation point. So usually when you're advertising something, there's a saturation point where it's just you can't go any further with it. But that wasn't the case with Gauranga. There's many wonderful stories. We could be here all night talking about them. But it became such a household word, a household name. Even people unknown to us were using it as a greeting. I recently heard from one local villager when he was a kid. He played for the Les Mexico football team. And he said that when they used to score, they would shout Gauranga. That was interesting. And then there was that newspaper article. Yeah, we used to do posters on buses and stickers and so many things, and devotees would risk life and limb putting Gauranga posters on motorway bridges. And even to this day, even though the posters are not there, people still swear that they're there, because in their mind they're embedded in their mind. So there was one newspaper article which was about this little kitten, which some really nasty person had thrown it off a motorway bridge, and it broke all its arms and legs. You know, it had 4 plaster casts on it. And the people in the hospital named it Gauranga the kitten, because they reckoned that because it was a Gauranga bridge, then it survived. Because they were thinking, how is it possible to survive, you know, a little kitten getting thrown off a bridge onto the motorway? And it showed you a picture of Gauranga the kitten in recovery. So there's many wonderful stories, and not only the devotees, but the people in general were taking up the Gauranga campaign. Even on the street, the devotees, they would get people not just to say Gauranga, but shout it at the top of their voice, to the point where when a devotee was seen on the street by somebody at a distance, you know, it could be 100 yards or so, they just shout Gauranga. And it was good, because if you were having a bit of a mental day on the street, then they would pick you up. And sometimes even the karmis or the non-devotees would come along and say, hey Gauranga, I thought you were supposed to be happy. So it was really inspiring. We also noticed that a lot of the trouble we were having with the authorities, that disappeared when Lord Chaitanya's name came into the equation, because the whole idea is that when we chant Lord Chaitanya's name, there's no offense. When we chant Hare Krishna, there's some offense. In order to mitigate that offense, then we chant the Panchatattva Mahamantra. We chant Lord Chaitanya's name and his associates, so we can become free from offenses and become qualified to chant Hare Krishna. So in order to purify people so that they could come to the point of chanting Hare Krishna, or come to the point of reading one of the many millions of books which we had distributed over the years, then people were getting qualified by chanting the holy name of Lord Gauranga. So after not just the devotees, but the people of Scotland and north of England chanting Gauranga for many years, then Lord Chaitanya decided to move over here on his traveling Sankirtan program to benefit everybody. And I'm glad to hear that actually some of the devotees have requested that we start that up again. It was very auspicious. And it meant that even if you were having a tough day in Sankirtan, if you get people to chant Gauranga, you felt like your day was worthwhile. So after a couple of years of worship in Kodnitai Marpishashi, then there was one of the top artists of ISKCON, Taralakshi. She was commissioned to repaint them. And there was an idea of rubbing them down, how they should look, etc. And she was at it for a few weeks. Actually, it was a bit like when Lord Jagannath was being carved by Vishwakarma. He said, "Okay, nobody interfere, nobody interrupt. If you do, then I stop carving." So when he was interrupted, well, actually, we know the story that there was some chink, chink, chink of the chisel going on. And then when Maharaj Indrajumna stopped hearing any chiseling noises, then he became, first of all, curious as to why he stopped, and then he became impatient, and then he was just so intensely and desirous to see, why did it stop? Why does this work stop? So he came in, and then he seen that the deities of Jagannath were carved in such a way that they were very unusual, and he thought, "Oh no, I've blown it. I made this promise not to interrupt the Murtiwala, the devotee who carves the deities, and now I've interrupted, and now I've spoiled it all because they're unfinished." But actually, it wasn't the case. This was the way they were meant to be. This is the way the Lord wanted to manifest himself. And similarly, no matter how much trying to reshape the deities, Tiralakshmi would find every time she went back, they were the way they were before. So finally, it was decided, okay, just paint them. Then it seems to be this is the way they want to look. We're trying to make them look one way, but this is the way they want to manifest themselves. So she painted them very beautifully, and since then also so many wonderful outfits were made, and there's such a big stock of nice jewellery. Many deities, they have like fake jewellery. But we were quite affluent at the time, and we spent quite a lot on the deities' paraphernalia, top class. I remember when what's his name? Krishna Kshetra Maharaj was a deity minister, and he came to inspect, as he would go around all the centres, he came to inspect the puja, and he said it was first class. The paraphernalia was first class, the standard was first class. So this is the thing with deity worship. We want to keep the standards up. In this way, we keep our consciousness up. And to serve Kodnitai Pishashi doesn't mean just that you have to be Brahmin and be on the altar. Everything we're doing is for the service of the deities. And it is all connected. Even if we're only first initiated or not initiated, everything we're doing, cutting the vegetables, sweeping the floor, digging to plant some vegetables for the deities, going in Sanktan, distributing books, taking the holy name, distributing prasadam. Everything we're doing is for the pleasure of the deities. They're the center of the community. They're the focal point of the yatra, and they're the inspiration. The spiritual master and the deities are the inspiration of the devotees. So I'll just close here in a little while. Murli Prabhu is going to give a talk on the appearance of Lord Ram. And now we will just have a short bhajan. And are you able to put something on the screen? Maybe we can put in Ayodhyavasi. You can find that one. Shri Kodnitai Pishashi ki, Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Jai Guru Premanande. Ayodhyavasi Ram, Dasaratanandana Ram, Patita Pavan, Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram. Ayodhyavasi Ram, Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasatanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayojavasi Ram Dasarathanandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Rama. Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Ayodhyavasi Ram Dasaratha Nandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Dham Ayodhyavasi Ram Dasaratha Nandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Ayodhyavasi Ram Dasaratha Nandana Ram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohana Ram Ayodhya Vasiram Dasaratanandanaram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohanaram Ayodhya Vasiram Dasaratanandanaram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohanaram Ayodhya Vasiram Dasaratanandanaram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohanaram Ayodhya Vasiram Dasaratanandanaram Patita Pavana Janaki Jivana Sita Mohanaram Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Ram Sita Ram Jaya Ram 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 Sita Ram 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 Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Kodanita Jaya Mayapur Shashi Jaya Kodanita Jaya Mayapur Shashi Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Govinda ki, Shri Kodnitai Mahaprasad ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki, Shri Ram Navami Mahamahotsav ki. So we'd just like to invite Murli Manohar Prabhu to speak. Just going to bring a chair over. Okay. Very sweet butter, no? Very sweet butter. Hare Krishna, Om Gana Tamarandasya, Gananjana Salakaya, Chakshumilitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Vastai Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prashalini Nivasisha Sunyavari Pashtatharas Dhanini Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada Pran, for inviting me to speak on this very wonderful day. It's wonderful. First time I heard the story of the arrival of Mayapur Shashi in Kodanitai. One, I remember hearing the actual installation, because I do service with the DD worship ministry, and there's quite some procedures for an installation ceremony sometimes. I mean, they can be simple, as Prabhupada did. Prabhupada generally did very simple. Now they're more elaborate. But as far as I remember hearing the story, that the installation ceremony here consisted of just arms in the air, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Was that a true story like that? Was there any bathing the day, or was it just carrying on? Oh, that was already installed. Okay, so that, yeah, he said. Yeah. Just and just reflecting when you're speaking about the Garanga campaign as well. I still am in central London. That's where I'm based. But the Garanga campaign was filtering down for the whole of Great Britain, that's for sure. And on the street, we had many people shouting, Goranga, Goranga. Especially they had Scottish accents. They would all, anyone from Scotland would say, have you heard of Goranga? Yeah, we've heard of Goranga. Very ecstatic. So this is the mercy of the Lord. The Lord comes. He hasn't left us forlorn. We have turned away from him by Dudita Purivishata Shat Shat Persevery Payo Smitihi Tanmaya Bujetam Pakyekesham Guru Devatma. It's one nice verse which I'm looking at presently, trying to relearn it from the 11th canto, that describes that when one turns away from the Lord, that one forgets that they're eternal servant of the Lord, then they become covered by the illusory potency called Maya. Yeah. So therefore, one should take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him and worship him as your very deity and your very life and soul. So we turn away from the Lord, and what are we greeted with in the material world? Adi Bautic and Adi Devic and Adi Atmic. Untold. I don't want to paint a bleak picture of the material world, but that's what it is. Untold grief, untold anxiety, bodily. I mean, how much can go wrong with our body? Everything can go wrong with our body, and let alone the mind. We know Adi Bautic, Adi Devic, and there's musus from other people. So the soul by nature, as we understand, is actually full of happiness. Yeah, it's full of bliss. And this is what I explain to people on the street when I'm distributing books. I explain, that you are actually full of happiness. But happiness is within. That's our nature. So in the material world, we are kind of lost. The jivas are lost. Jivas are lost, trying to find happiness
This is the analogy, trying to find happiness where it can't be found. Yeah. People in the material world, we to one degree or another, people in the material are trying to find happiness just through this material body. Yeah. But we are much more than this material body. We are eternal spirit soul. So this point here that also considering, and sometimes it's questioned, and theistic discussions, there's this discussion on the problem of evil. Yeah, and all religious traditions have their volumes of books, say, on speculations and reasons on the question of evil in Christianity. But we don't dwell on that so much, interestingly, in Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because we have a more perhaps complete understanding. But the question arises, is the Lord kind or not? Yeah. And the atheistic type of mind or the atheistic type of person often dwells on this point. Well, what about all the anxieties? What about all the suffering here? How can you possibly believe in the existence of God? You know, one time we do a Bhagavad Gita Sangha in our temple. It's not going on at the moment, but we're trying to revive it. What we do on a Friday night between 7:30 and 9, then we just sit in a circle and we just read Bhagavad Gita. Everyone reads a purport on a verse, and then we all comment. But it's in the temple room, so that means anyone who walks in the temple can sit in that circle. So sometimes we get different types of characters will come in, because it's central London, so many people come in. So anyway, this atheist, obviously he exhibited himself as an atheist, so he started describing graphically the disease of a young boy, of a young child who has insects. I won't go into detail. They eat the inside of the eyes anyway. You get the idea. Very emotionally, he was speaking. So, and he was saying, and do you believe in that God? Then he spoke quite emotional. So he grabbed people's attention. Then everyone went quiet and they all looked towards me. You know? So then I started to explain, but it's a very deep concept to explain very quickly. The basics is that we understand is that Lord is so kind and we've turned away from him, but he wants us to voluntarily accept, to voluntarily go towards him. So in that way, the material world is made to be perfectly imperfect. So I started to share his principles, but then in protest, he got up and walked out. You know, he was trying to make a point, you know. And so how long have we been here? And that's described as well in the Vedic scriptures. Since time immemorial. So that means a long, long, long time. 8,400,000 different species of life. Yeah. But what we explain, or what we understand from studying Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the Lord never leaves us. He actually expands himself within our very heart. So it's interesting because the Lord appears, as we're described, Lord Ram appears, and the Lord appears in his different incarnations. But he appears, he couldn't get more closer to us than actually coming within our heart. Yeah. And he's doing, you could say he gives us, that also takes some deep understanding, like he gives us the intelligence to go about our wayward activities in this material world. Prabhupada one time said, Krishna gives the intelligence to a householder to protect his house. And he gives intelligence to a thief for how to break in the house. Krishna is very busy. He was joking like that. But Krishna, he gives this intelligence, and Pankaj Janvi Prabhu one time was explaining, or perhaps it was Jananivas in one class he gave in London, that's why, because Krishna is our friend. Krishna is our friend. Just like if you have a really good friend, which we do, hopefully, many good friends, Vaishnavas, then they're inclined to help you. Yeah. So Krishna, so we turn from Krishna and we try, and basically what we're trying to do in this material world, to grow so subtly, we are trying to imitate Krishna, but we're doing a pretty bad job. And yeah, we're trying to imitate Krishna. But So Krishna, he doesn't just only come in a heart, but he gives us direction to engage in mature activities. But what he's doing at this point, that what he's doing is it's something, a conscience. Everyone's got conscience, isn't it? He's always trying to guide the jiva towards the good. Always trying to. Anyone had that experience where you get intelligence to do something good, but because of the modes of material nature, then you did something bad, said something bad. But Krishna from within the heart was that conscience trying. So that's God. That's the Supreme Lord. He's always trying to do us good. He's always trying to bring us back. And this is out of love and affection. He's trying to bring us back through good conscience. But most people, because we're contaminated, could say we definitely are. We are very much affected by the three modes of material nature. Therefore, we can't hear that voice within. We actually can't hear it. Yeah, we become so absorbed in our senses and external world that we cannot actually hear that divine direction which is coming within. As I was speaking to one of the boys here who's helping with the agriculture here, he does meditation. He does it quite intensely. He does like 2 hours a day meditation. Not the same meditation as we do, but you can tell he's got a sense of goodness that's coming from that. Yeah, the point I'm making here is that the Lord is very kind. He comes within our heart and he's trying to guide us back to him. Yeah. So he will facilitate our wayward desires in this world because he knows you're not going to be happy from that. Yeah. Bahunam janaman ante ganavan potite vasudeva samamiti samahatma sadulaba. That's why it's after many, many births it's described. One who's blessed with the association of devotees, they actually begin to inquire. Atato Brahma Jignasa, this is the actual goal of the human form of life, when actually one begins to inquire into existential position. Why am I suffering so much? Yeah. So he comes, and also he comes as he sends his representatives as well. And we have the Guru Parampara, Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Buddhisai Buddhu Sakalina Mahatma Yoga Nasta Parantapa. So he comes to actually guide us, to actually, in the form of the Guru. The Guru is the mercy form of the Lord. Yeah. And he comes to guide us and give us direction in how we can go back to him. So he comes within our heart. He comes as the spiritual master. And very dramatically, he actually manifests himself in many different incarnations. Shankar Yad is described that. How many incarnations are there? As we all know, if you can count the waves in the ocean, that's how many incarnations there are. Yeah, and all these incarnations, all these different manifestations of Krishna, he comes, is there to attract us, especially in the form of Krishna, or is there also comes to establish Dharma, as described in Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hidamasya klani bhavati bharata abhutaram tanamasya taratma jam shritamiham pritnaya sodadam vinashyati diskatam dharma samsara panataya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna comes to re-establish religious principles. And just recently, I'm just reading also in the 10th canto, it's grabbed my attention where Prabhupada, often we hear that the Maha Mantra is the manifestation of Krishna. But Prabhupada, in quite a few places, he said this Hare Krishna movement is the manifestation of Krishna. This is the incarnation of Krishna in this Kali Yuga. It's the ISKCON movement. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Yeah. So we have to do our best to represent it in that way and to attract people. Yeah. So he comes in many different incarnations, and the stories between each of the incarnations is very exciting and very wonderful. What was it? Just recently, I was someone was kind of having doubts about doubts in the mood of that they're so attracted to watching mundane movies or adventure stories, and there's so much out there to grab your attention. These different, horror movies, these different, these to grab one's attention, actually out there. And there were things, but I was trying to explain that you have no idea. You have no idea about the excitement that's actually is a reality, and it's Krishna's pastimes. Yeah, it's the Lord. I mean, the story of Lord Nrsingadev. Such a, you could say, and a very exciting Leela. We know the story about Prahlad and what Prahlad Maharaj went through, and then the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, how he appeared, and as many other incarnations of the Lord. We have Matsya and the whole wonderful story there. But other incarnations, great Matsya, Parashuram. If you're into a bit of chivalrous spirit, and you're into that typing, there's Parashuram. He slaughtered the Kshatriyas. How many times was it? It was 21 times, yeah? 21 times. So that will probably be a definitely X-rated film. But 21 times, so that means he slaughtered them all. And then the children, when they grew up, when the other Kshatriyas grew up, he slaughtered them as well. Anyway, that's quite a graphic pastime. But then we hear about the wonderful, the sweet pastimes of Krishna. And that's what mainly as Gaudiya Vaishnavas were focused on. And interesting, Shivaram Swami Maharaj was mentioning that, yeah, interesting, something to think about that, because Prabhupada installed Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman in Bhaktivedanta Mana. But he requested that they not chant the names of Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. It's just to attract people towards Krishna. It's just to attract the Hindu people towards Krishna. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't just stop chanting the names of Sitaram Hanuman. They're so much in love with him after all these years, they chant. But so, yeah, and the pastimes of today is the appearance of Lord Ramachandra. And I remember the first time when a good few years ago, I was reading the Ramayana by Krishna Dharma. Wonderful, wonderful book. The Ramayana is a wonderful story, but reading Krishna Dharma's Ramayana is very accessible. And as I was reading it, I was thought, oh my God, I'm becoming a Ram Bhakta. This was really enthralling. Yeah. And this is what's the appearance of Lord Ram, especially when I started to read about his virtues, about his dharmic principles. It was something I never heard of. It's something I couldn't conceive. Yeah. How much he was kind of, not obedient is the right word, but how much he was an example of a perfect person. And that's Lord Ram. He comes, Mayavadi Purushottama, not Mayavadi, but Mayada Purushottama. Yeah, so Purushottama, he comes as the perfect person. Yeah, perfect person. Anyone would like to meet a perfect person? That's Krishna. He said, I saw this T-shirt one time. A T-shirt. I am not perfect, but I'm so close to it that it scares me. Typical materialistic person. I'm so close to it that it scares me. Yeah. And if you look in this material world, is that everyone's got, in one sense, especially we've got some imperfection. Yeah. So many imperfections. I mean, someone may be very, very beautiful, it may be a model or something like that. But then their character may be very twisted and horrible and unpleasant and very proud, Some may be very strong. There's different, the different opulences of Krishna. So wealth, strength, beauty, renunciation, ones I missed, knowledge and fame. Yeah. These are very, in of themselves, they're very attractive. They're very attractive because these are partial, because when we see it, we are partially seeing Krishna, or in this case, Lord Ram, we could say. And Lord Ram is considered to be the closest to Krishna. Yeah, the closest to having the qualities of all the incarnations is actually Krishna. And we have this automatic attraction, because we're automatically attracted to someone who is perfect, someone who is very, because Krishna is his wife is the goddess of fortune, and and he's very, and he has unlimited wealth. Yeah, just like if I was to explain now that in half an hour you have the richest man in Great Britain is going to come and visit here in half an hour. Everyone will be, wow, what does he look like? Wow, how does he walk? How does he sit? How does he dress? Well, we might do. Perhaps devotees who might work, there's no comparison. Yeah, and sometimes it brings out a lot of, sometimes this point here as well is that if we have any envy for someone who has any of these opulences, wealth, fame, knowledge, renunciation, beauty, etc., any envy, that means, sir, you're not qualified to come in front of the Lord, because the Lord has everything in full, everything in full. And this point of envy as well, that the persons are envy of those who have what they can never have. It brings out a certain envy. Each year I'm blessed with the service, or depends how many carts we have on Rath Yatra. If there's one cart, I don't get any service. If there's 3 carts, I get some service. I go on Lord Balaram's cart, and we have these fancy cars come, Rolls Royce, Bentley, like that. We don't own them, but someone else owns them. And we take the Lord, and we should have stopped. Oh no, carry on. I didn't. Yeah, I haven't got to Lord Ram yet. But I just cut it short. So yeah, when I was reading Ramayana, the Ramayana was so inspired by the Lord Ram's virtues, especially the part where he agrees to be banished to the forest for like 14 years. So he's the perfect person. He has no fault in him. So Jai Shri Mayapur, Shashi Kodinitai Ki Jai. So we should spend some time reading Ramayana, we're hearing about Lord Ram, I remember, okay, and then, I remember reading, and I have felt perhaps one of the first times, well, I'd already joined Krishna consciousness, but for the first time I was thinking, wow, I really want to try and be good in character. I really want to make an effort. It was so inspiring, so inspiring to be the virtues of Lord Ram. And he's pastime. I don't know that I couldn't recite all the pastimes of Rama. I wouldn't have time as well. But that's one of my favorite. Well, one time I was reading it in the temple room, just as a reading once a week, and especially there's some very parts that stick in my memory. One is the part, as I mentioned, where Lord Ram just agrees to leave for 14 years to actually go to the forest. And there's no question there's nothing in his heart where he's saying, this is not right, this is not right. But because, as we know, and his father, Dasarath, later left the world out of heartbreak. And then perhaps let's focus on that the story, as I was mentioning, there isn't a better story than Lord Ram. If you want an adventure, if you want to read about romance, if you want to be on the edge of your seat, especially when Sita becomes kidnapped. That's like, I was just hearing today as well how there was, one sadhu, when he heard that he was meditating on the pastimes, and he refused to eat when he heard about, the story when Sita was kidnapped. But it wasn't the Sita herself. What's it called? It was the Maya Sita. The point I'm trying to make is that let's not be distracted by the things of this world. Yeah. Sometimes we get carried away by watching the news of this world. Anyone got caught out by the news? Yeah. First of all, it was COVID. And then every day, at some point I got sick of it. And I'm fed up with COVID. I'm not going to watch any news about it again. Because when it first came out, it was like, okay, check the next day. And then COVID finished, and then this whole Ukraine war started. Don't forget about that. So let's just read about the pastimes of the Lord. It's much more exciting. Yeah, much more. And what we get from it is we become free from material bondage. Yeah, but we have to be patient with it. We have to, do it daily. Hear the pastime, become attracted. Anyway, perhaps I'll stop there. RT, but any questions or comments? Anything anyone like to glorify Lord Ram? Any particular pastime which you really remember of Lord Ram? Another one, I just remember reading the part where Mantara, where she convinces Kai, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Mantara, how she twists her mind, yeah, how turns her mind, to go against Lord Ram. So the point that just by association, just by association, so only she was speaking in such a way and gradually her mind became changed. And she saw things from a complete different way, just by bad association, So there's one parts of the Ramayana which really sticking there, putting you on the spot now. Parts of Ramayana which yes, Prabhupada. There's a microphone.
Lord Ram says that if anyone says to me, from this day on, I am yours, then I become his ward.
Yeah, that was just listening today. So that was in regard to Vibhishan, wasn't it? Who left the party of Ravana. Yeah, so. And I just remembering something else I've been watching, reading today about Lord Ram. And there's one point which Radhanath Swami, Radhanath Maharaj mentions in regards to Hanuman when he went over to Lanka, as we know, as a messenger, and he wanted to see Ravan, wanted to see him and kind of test his might. Then they set his towel on fire. We know the story. Then he burnt Lanka down. But Maharaj was bringing out the point that that wasn't very good thing. So he was put in a difficult situation. Hanuman had his towel set on fire, so he's put in a very difficult situation. But in that difficult situation, he saw God's hand. He saw Lord Ram's hand, and he thought, okay, this is very difficult, but how can I make the best use of this very difficult situation? Yeah. So he turned it around completely, and he used it to burn down Lanka. Yeah. So also Prabhupada says in one place as well is that the devotee should unhesitatingly accept the miseries that we meet as the grace of the Lord. That takes a bit of meditating upon, because the Lord's so we're faced with difficulty. How can we turn it around? How can we make it positive? The Lord has arranged this situation. There must be a Krishna conscious light here. There must be a Krishna conscious path here. And that was exemplified by Hanuman. His tower was burnt on fire. So, okay, let me burn down Lanka. Any other inspiration you remember about Lord Ram? In particular? I'll put you on the spot here. Think of his pastimes. I was reading today, I'll try and prompt you a bit. I just very heartbreaking. It's the scene, not heartbreaking, but heart rejoicing, is when Ram has defeated Ravan, and he goes to see Sita for the first time. That meeting between Sita and Ram is so heart-touching, where they actually meet after all what they've been through. And Krishna and Lord Ram meets Sita. It's very, very enchanting. The goddess Fortune meets her. Yes, yeah. Diana March, please. Yeah. And then Jabat Basu again.
So although we hear that, these pastimes are blissful, for those participants, it's difficult to understand that, because Ram was so heavy with Sita.
Yeah.
But it's like a pastime which is, who would want to go back to the spiritual world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it has that aspect as well. But what's the phenomena of it is that it drags us in. Just from the external point of view, it seems, why? But that's the Lord's expertise in creating Shata Leela, that he drags us in and gets us to contemplate very deeply. So he creates like deep, the pastimes are so very deep emotions. I mean, why did Ram banish Sita? That's it. Krishna's got you. You're actually meditating on Ram and trying to understand. You're not meditating something material. And I'm not a scholar of the Ramayana, but if a scholar, it can be explained in a very, if anyone knows, it can be explained in a very wonderful way. That Sita actually, she entered the earth and the whole pastime there. But yeah, we should understand. We should have a quite a good broad understanding of Krishna's pastimes, yeah, and the emotions which are displayed, and not think that they are anything material. So, in one sense, the pastimes of Lord Ram and perhaps the reversals that we see, it gives a certain, although it may be hard to understand, it gives a certain joy and freedom from material bondage, just by contemplating it and trying to understand it. Because you're actually associating with the Lord by thinking of these pastimes. So the Lord is very, the Lord's not going to do anything boring. He's not going to do anything which is just humdrum and boring. He's going to make it in such a way that you're on the edge of your seat. So that in itself, just hearing those pastimes, that in itself is purifying. And even though we hear it and it seems to be reversal, we will come away with a certain joy. But sometimes we need to explain to people, and they may have doubts again about the spiritual world, but there is emotions in the spiritual world. But they have to be understood in the correct way. I don't know if that kind of answered it. But the main point is that to drag us in and to even ask that question is glorious. That means you are actually absorbed in the Lord's pastimes. Yeah. Jagat Vasihu.
Yeah, I once heard that a guest at a temple was very strongly arguing that the absolute truth is impersonal. And he was a very powerful orator, and and he was also kind of quite proud and belittling some of the younger devotees who weren't so familiar in that kind of dialogue. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, and he knew that this person was very familiar with the Ramayana. So he said to him, would Lord Hanuman want to merge with Lord Ram? Mm-hmm. And immediately the man could understand, from that pastime, from the relationship between Hanuman and Lord Ram, and then that person, even though he was previously so convinced that the goal of material life was to attain impersonal liberation, but just from briefly thinking about the relationship between Lord Ram and Hanuman, that he accepted that bhakti was higher than moksha.
So great fortune that he had the piety enough to be favorable to the past and to understand. Yeah, the Ramayana. Yeah, that brings up Hanuman's. He personifies servitorship, isn't it, Hanuman? Yeah, and his service to Lord Ram is unmatched. Very fired up is Lord Hanuman. Is the Hanuman very fired up for service to Ram? Anything else there? Otherwise, we can have some bhajan, isn't it? We can finish with that. We can have some bhajans now. Is that the idea, or is it? Okay. Okay. So everyone, when you spend, or if you haven't done already, good to. There's a cartoon of the Ramayana if you want to watch that. Very nice. Lord Ramachandra ki jai, Kodanitai Mayapur Shashi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, I don't feel uncomfortable carrying on when the art is going on. Okay, let's sing for the last 15 minutes. Sing a chord. Jiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Harati Gaura Chande Harati Kesoba Jiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandre Arati Kesoba Jiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandre Arati Kesoba Janavitatavam Jagamanaloga Jagamanaloga Takenitai Jabame Gadadaya Kenitai Jabame Take Nitai Chan Vame Gadadaya Take Nitai Chan Vame Gadadaya Nikadeya Dvaita Shili Vasa Chatadara Dvaita Shili Vasa Chatadara Pose Nita Gaura Chan Ratna Simasani Kose Achi Gaura Chan Ratna Simasani Karuna Brahma Hare Bhagane Karuna Brahma Hare Bhagane Hare Hare Kore Shamala Dulaya Nala Shamoradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Basu Gosarigaya Mukunda Basu Gosarigaya Shankara Bhaje Kanta Bhaje Bhaje Karatala Shankara Bhaje Kanta Bhaje Bhaje Karatala Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Paramasala Paramasala Shankar Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhu Madhu Madhura Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhu Madhu Madhura Shankar Bhaje Ganta Jaya Gaurangita, 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 Jaya Gaurangita. Jaya Maya Shashi Jaya Gaurangita, Maya Shashi Jaya Gaurangita. Jaya Gaurangita. Koti Chandra Jini Vandana Reshavana Mala Kole Jalamala Kole Jalamala Shiva Sukhanara Preme Gada Gada Jiva Preme Gada Gada Pata Deve Noda Deke Golala Sampada Gorangde Alotik Soba Jaga Jana Manaloba Jana Manaloba Goranga Alotik Soba Jaga Jananana Loba Jaga Jananana Loba Jaya Gaurangita Jaya Gaurangita Gaurangita Jaya Gaurangita Jaya Gaurangita Jaya Maya Po Shashi Jaya Koda Nitai Maya Po Shashi Jaya Koda Nitai Nitai Goda Haribo 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 Nitai Goda Haribo Nitai Goda Haribo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Gaura Premanande Hari Haribo Jayam Vishnu Pa Paramahamsa Raja Katavya Sto Sati Vain Loving Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dhama Ki Jai Ganga Chamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Shashi Kodinitai Ki Jai Appearance Day of Lord Ramachandra Ki Jai Giri Hari Lal Ki Jai Shri Tulsinath Ki Jai Nidagora Premanande Haribo. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Tayane. Hiranya Kashipur Vaksha Shila Tankana Kalai Ito Nisingha Padato Nisingho Yato Yato Yamitato Nisingha Bahir Nisingho Hridai Nisingho Nisingam Madim Sharanam Papaji Tavakara Kamalavarena Kamadvita Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jajagadisha Hare Jajagadisha Hare Jajagadisha Hare Tavagara Kamalarena Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jajagadisha Hare Jajagadisha Hare Disha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jajagadisha Hare Jajagadisha Jaya Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev, Nrsimhadev, Jaya Nrsimhadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Kodanita Jaya Mayapur Shashi Jaya Kodanita Jaya Mayapur Shashi Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprashashi ki, Shri Shri Siddharam Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Nittai Gaur Premanande. So thanks very much everyone for showing up. This is the actual appearance day of the deities Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprashashi on the appearance day of Lord Ram. And the same festival will be on Sunday, so there'll be a bit more activity going on there, a little longer celebration being the public festival. And I would like to invite everyone to come and take prasad. The cooks have been busy for the last few hours, making a nice feast for the deities and for the devotees, so please come and take prasad. Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprashashi ki, Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki, Iskon Govinda ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Nittai Gaur Premanande.